Well, a happy Monday morning to you folks, and welcome to this Got Your Back LeBrun and Rishaug first ever short shift edition. What is a short shift? Well, it's a chance for Pierre and I to come on, say hello, go over everything that went on around the National Hockey League over the last couple of days, bring you up to speed on some headlines, some news, and some notes. It's not going to be our usual 30 or 40-minute podcast. It'll be a tighter edition. At least that's our intention. We both like to talk a lot, so not sure we can hit those goals. In today's episode, Dale Hawerchuk. What a wonderful way to honor a fantastic human being and a great hockey player in Winnipeg over the weekend. We'll talk about that. Jake Allen with a brand new deal. He's signed up for at least a couple more years of the rebuild. And Nick Robertson absolutely crushing it at Leafs camp. Eyeing a top 6 role? Oh. Mark Masters will weigh in on that. And a reminder that Got Your Back NHL edition is brought to you by Cross Country Canada Supplies and Rentals. We are so proud to have them as our title sponsor for Season 1. Cross Country Canada provides equipment and supplies to all facets of the Canadian construction industry. They are a truly Canadian company. 4 pals launched this thing in their garage with nothing but a folding table and an idea back in 2014. Now, how about multiple locations across Western Canada, over 100 employees. They've expanded into all areas of the construction industry, and we are proud to have them on board as our title sponsor. As we say good morning to a very happy-looking Pierre LeBrun. Show us the hat, Pierre. Show us the hat.
Oh, do I have my Cowboys hat on? I didn't even realize I was going to take it off, and I kept it on.
Yeah.
I think that Cooper Rush being 3-0 as the backup is a good thing.
Yeah, you're feeling good about it, man. That was a good win. Listen, I'm not the biggest NFL guy, but I think what I'm going to do here on the podcast, I'm going to live vicariously through you with the Cowboys, and maybe I'll just start cheering for them too, so it can be like we can both enjoy it together.
Well, here's what I can guarantee you ahead of time, Ryan. If you're going to live through my Cowboys love, it ends every January with me being emotionally distraught.
Okay,
so
good to
just know that ahead of time.
So we're going to have a little bit of a down period on the podcast through January where Pierre is you're moping a little bit.
There'll be some moping for a couple of days. That is a guarantee because the playoffs are not their friend.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's been.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, so we'll get to the breakdown around the rest of the National Hockey League in a moment, Pierre, but wanted to get a thought from you on Dale Hawerchuk. They did a great job of honoring him over the weekend. They, erected a statue there right in the heart of True North Square. Just such a fitting location. I see you've got him on your wall there behind you. What are your thoughts about
right here?
The wonderful man and career that Dale Hawerchuk was?
That was from the charity event in his name that was in Muskoka last year.
Mm-hmm.
That Andrew Jackson puts together, who was really good friends with him. That was really nice to see in Winnipeg. I mean, listen, when you think Winnipeg Jets and their history, what's the first name that pops to mind, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's and then the Jets 2.0 have had a nice touch in how they handle a lot of these things from Mark Chipman on down, and I'm not surprised that they handle that with that kind of dexterity. Wonderful to see.
Yeah, lots of big hockey names on hand, some wonderful speeches. 1,188 career NHL games for Dale Hawerchuk, but just such a legacy of decency and humanity, so well loved through the game. And that was really nice to see on the weekend. All right, let's take a look back at the weekend. Time to break it all down. And that is brought to you by Pro Hockey Life. And we're really excited to have them on board. Much like us here on Got Your Back, they're absolutely obsessed with the game, Pierre. 16 locations across the country. Pro Hockey Life will provide absolutely everything that you need. If you're a player, top-of-the-line equipment. If you're a parent, bring the whole family. The shops are tons of fun, and there's stuff for everybody to do, hands-on kind of stuff. And if you're a fan, they got everything you need, jerseys, hats, and apparel for you to cheer on your favorite team. I want to start in Toronto because with the injuries that they've had, we talked about it last week on the show, they're looking for people to step up, right? Tavares week to week to start the year. They're banged up. And Nick Robertson, Pierre, is making some serious noise. He's got 3 goals. in preseason, scored 2 in one game on the weekend. And we're talking goal scorers goals, like takes the puck in the high slot and snipes. This guy is shooting. If he just recently put on one of the top 2 lines as well, was skating the other day with Nylander and Kerfoot. If he can emerge and contribute in any sort of meaningful way, I mean, that is huge for the Maple Leafs. And it's early. It's early.
Yeah. It is early, but I would say that so far, if you're going to ask Nick Robertson to come to camp, and it's a huge camp for him at this point in his career, and make a statement, so far, I think he's made it. So far, so good for him. No final decisions taken. The one caveat in all this, and I think, listen, there's a real decent chance that he makes the opening night roster. The one thing to consider, though, with a team like the Leafs that's always dancing around the cap and everything else, is that he doesn't require waivers.
Yeah.
In terms of an NHL move. He's not the only player, but unfortunately, those are things certainly when it comes to the Leafs that comes into play. Again, it may not in this case because they may just feel like they need him and that for his path right now that he needs to start the year on the NHL roster, and he's played great in camp. So, hockey may trump the CBA here, but I do need to mention that because
of course,
it's not nothing, especially when it comes to the Leafs. Yeah.
But when you run into injuries and Tavares, perhaps Engvall, unavailable to get going in such a critical season for the Leafs here, the last thing they want to deal with is a slow start. If Robertson continues to show, he's going to have a great chance. Here's Sheldon Keefe.
That's what he does. That's what he's best at. That's what he has a history of doing. And you want to see him be able to convert it at a higher level. And I think we're starting to see that here in this preseason, but the games will get harder, the competition will get harder, and I can see him improving and his confidence growing daily.
So Mark Masters will get the final word here on Robertson. I texted him this morning and I said, okay, Mark, finish the sentence for me. Nick Robertson is going to ... And Mark Masters, our intrepid Leafs reporter, said, make the team if he plays well this week. The job is available. He's got to take it. So it is there for the taking for Nick Robertson. Early returns are very, very good. Ottawa Senators fans have to feel pretty good after that weekend too. Claude Giroux, all kinds of assists. Alex DeBrincat sniping, scored an OT winner, Pierre, and like a nice goal scorer's OT winner. There's so much talk about promise in Ottawa, and for these new additions to be ringing the bell in preseason, I know it's just preseason. It's got to feel good for Pierre Dorion, for the Senators fan base, to see these guys getting something done early.
And it's funny if you just juxtapose the two Ontario NHL markets, Ryan. I mean, obviously the Leafs have higher expectations, but the pressure and angst in Toronto versus the sheer enthusiasm of the next step for a young Senators team, it's completely night and day in the two markets. I mean, it really, the two fan bases are living a different experience. Listen, I just had my third consecutive minor hockey, one of my kids at another tournament again this past weekend.
And how did they do?
All I do is live in hockey rinks right now.
They won, right?
A little preseason event, and my son's team actually came out on top. But
yeah, you can brag. You can be the proud dad here on the pod, Pierre.
But my point is, hockey parents come up to me in rinks, and of course, the event was here in the Toronto area. What about the Leafs? And the face on the Leafs, are they finally gonna do it? The face is it's just full of angst, and you feel for Leaf fans that way. But to your question about Ottawa, how about the options that DJ Smith has in terms of his first two power play? Well, his two power play units. You can't put all those forwards on one unit. So I think we're going to have a 1A, 1B situation in terms of deployment with all the firepower that he has up front. Here's the thing on DeBrincat that obviously more globally interests me, Ryan. He's RFA at the end of the year, right? He didn't come in and sign an extension, nor does he have to. The sense I got from sort of making a few calls in that situation, I wrote about the Senators last week, is that I think he wants to, figure out, the Ottawa market, how he likes it there, how he fits in with the Senators. It's smart. Let's take some time here to figure out what the future looks like. Plus, again, he's RFA at the end of the year. He's not UFA. There's no rush for the Senators either, but that's going to be a fascinating thing. I mean, this guy is a terrific goal scorer, a 40-goal guy. Does he look at the extensions that, all the other core players have signed, or most of them, and say, I want to be part of that? or does he come with the hammer next summer?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a narrative that through all this positive energy in Ottawa is still an important storyline.
Yeah, interesting when guys get, either traded to a new organization and with a short amount of time left on their contract with the option to extend long term. I always find it interesting when guys do that right away. It surprises me a little bit because think about it, you got to get there. You got to figure out if you like it, figure out what the mix is, figure out the city, especially if you've got a family. There's lots to sort out. Look at Pierre-Luc Dubois in Winnipeg, right? Like he's waiting, wants to wait, get a feel for it, see what's what, and before you make that long-term commitment. So that's definitely one we'll be keeping an eye on. Jake Allen gets a deal done, forgoes the opportunity to test the market, in a time and place where goaltenders, we just saw the market for goalies, how high it was and how much money was out there for them. You had a chance to maybe do that here upcoming, but decides to re-up with the Montreal Canadiens and says he wants to be part of the rebuild. It's just something that, he wants to continue to be part of. Here's Jake Allen.
I understand where we're trying to go, and I think that, I can, be an important piece in that. I get I'm not going to be here forever, but at the same time, I'd like to be one of those building blocks that starts this build. And, when I'm retired and hopefully this team is very good for tens of years to come, I can say that, I was maybe one of those pieces that started the puzzle together. And
yeah, so all the media in Montreal about this signing has been incredibly positive, that this was smart for the Montreal Canadiens to do. What's your sense, Pierre?
Yeah, I think it was too. I mean, listen, there are going to be some long nights for this team this year. There's a lot of enthusiasm right now because I think Habs fans are excited by the modern approach of Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon and the way they've, bulked up at analytics department and the way they're prioritizing player development. It's a whole wind of change there with the Montreal Canadiens. But I also will tell you that come November and December, there's also going to be a moment where everyone understands where this is headed. Without Carey Price, this is a longer path towards where they want to get to. That's just reality. And Kent Hughes knows that. We chatted last week for a piece I wrote. And extending Jake Allen is extremely important for the organizations for a couple of reasons. Kent Hughes went into detail with me last week, and he has with other media outlets, on how he doesn't want that players accept losing as part of this rebuild, that it's okay to create this culture where, we're not expected to win this year anyway. They want to try to insulate their younger players with some veteran players in terms of this is how you act as a pro. It's not okay to lose. Let's power through this rebuild with a certain frame of mind. That's what they're trying to do in Montreal. And Jake Allen not only will obviously stop the puck, which will help on some nights because that blue line is going to allow a lot of grade A chances in Montreal this year. But also off the ice, Jake Allen's one of the veteran voices in the room that's going to say, hey, guys, that's not okay, And so that's why, for a lot of reasons, I think it made sense for the Habs to extend him and to bridge the gap towards life after Carey Price. And Kent Hughes knows that there are no guarantees after having a generational goalie, the top goalie in the world in the modern era, arguably in Carey Price. What comes next? They got to go to the draft next year in Nashville, Ryan, and draft a goalie, right? I mean,
well, on that
that's
note,
the reality
Pierre,
of it. And if you look around, I mean, Edmonton's just lived this for years. I mean, it's difficult to know with the same assertion. To me, the scouting community, analytics, there's a right-handed D. We see him progressing X. There's your number one. Goaltending to me has never been more uncertain, is what I'm feeling from NHL front offices in terms of what they're looking at. And so, in terms of Jake Allen bridging the gap to whatever that is, even if it's maybe Caden Primo taking a big step, a lot of uncertainty for the Montreal Canadiens there.
So Montembeault, likely the guy that works with Allen. Primo has one more year of being able to get up and down from the minors without needing waivers. And if they want him to maybe take a shot at being that guy, you think they want him playing as much as possible. But you talk about the draft here. It's notable. The Habs, in the Carey Price era, maybe it's just tough to prioritize a draft pick, a high draft pick on a goalie when you're so solid at that position. But it's notable the Habs have not drafted a goalie in the top 5 rounds since 2014. And that was Zach Fucale, a couple of fifths, seventh, but really not spending any high quality assets in the top 2 or 3 rounds. And there have been some goalies, obviously, that have come and gone in much higher rounds. The Habs have not prioritized it. And so now what's next? now that the Carey Price era is over. Jake Allen, by the way, did address the idea that he's got big shoes to fill.
I'll never fill Carey's shoes. I'm blunt in saying that. I'll never will. I don't have the talent and the game that Carey Price has, but I have my own game.
He has his own game. I watched his whole media availability. I thought he handled it really well, and that's part of it too, being somebody in Montreal that can handle the media pressure properly, even when things don't go well. Jake Allen's been around long enough, Pierre. I think he'll probably remain a positive in that regard.
Yeah, and again, this is a veteran player who's embracing the very realistic truth that once this program gets to where Kent Hughes wants this program to be, he won't be around. Like Jake Allen is just trying to get, be there during these lean years here. And then when the Habs expect and hope to be a contender again, he's not going to be the guy in net. I think it says something about his character that he understands what he's signing up for over the next couple of years. And it tells you about tells you that he understands the business, that the grass isn't always greener, and that he likes it there. I kind of like that about him.
That'll be interesting to watch what kind of year he can cobble out there. Playing in Montreal in a rebuild, the numbers are never going to be great. It's about letting the players be in games. I watched for years this young group in Edmonton. On a lot of nights they were trying to be in it, but the goaltending wasn't there to support it. Trying to rebuild with bad goaltending is tough because it rips the guts out of your team night in, night out when they're undermanned and they're overmatched and they're not in games. So Allen there to stabilize things for this Montreal young group as they look to put the pieces together quickly. Boston Bruins just can't get any injury luck either. Already starting the season, Marchand rather, McAvoy. Taylor Hall gets added to the list of really quality players the Bruins aren't starting the year with, Pierre.
And listen, Brad Marchand, Taylor Hall, both on the left side.
Yeah.
Think about their left side to open the year. If Taylor Hall is, they're still trying to determine exactly how long he'll be out, but that's a big injury for that team, and kind of, makes Jim Montgomery go back to the drawing board. I think with the way he wanted some of his top six to look like already without Brad Marchand until at least late November, early December. I don't know. And you wonder with Patrice Bergeron, who had a lot of time to think about whether he was going to come back for another year, right? I mean, a lot of soul searching there. That was not an automatic decision. He really took his time. But I'm sure he comes back thinking, okay, Marchand will be back by this time, and we'll figure things out. And now another injury. It's going to put a lot of stress on some of their older players, him and Krejci, to put together some nights where you're just trying to grind it out in that division. And so interesting to see how the Bruins land through all this come halfway through the season, Ryan, if they're still, got their heads above water there.
Opportunity rings for a guy like Pavel Zacha, 15 goals last season with the Devils, and looking to put together another really strong season. He'll have opportunity to try and do that there in Boston. What's coming up column-wise for you in The Athletic here, Pierre?
I got a few irons in the water. I can't divulge that quite yet, Ryan.
Don't irons go in the fire? Do irons go in the water? I feel like you're cooling them off if you're putting them in the water.
Did I say water? I was thinking about water for a second there. No, I got a few calls that are in place for today, and I'll let you know.
So no sneak peeks? I thought maybe we'd get the odd sneak peek from you here on the pod, but I guess you got to play the cards close to the vest, eh?
I'm just waiting to see how this is going to space out in terms of a couple of interviews I have lined up.
Yeah, fair enough. You're doing that great work behind the scenes, digging for interviews and phone calls. It's always fun. All right. Also, we should mention as we look ahead to what's upcoming this week, of course, on Tuesday, the Canadian Heritage Committee will commence or continue its hearings with members of Hockey Canada. Chair Andrea Skinner is set to answer some questions, and former Chair Michael Brindamore as well. Of course, all of that in regards to, Hockey Canada using funds to settle settlements in alleged sexual assault incidents dating back to 2018. This is a continuing issue where more and more is coming out on it all the time. There was a report this morning in the Globe and Mail from Grant Robertson and Colin Freeze that there was, in fact, more than just one fund set aside for matters including but not limited to sexual abuse, and that fees paid by families across the country were going into these funds used to settle these sexual assault claims, and more than $7.1 million from the original fund was funneled into the Participants Legacy Trust Fund. That's a second fund that they've now realized, according to Globe and Mail, that Hockey Canada was using. So lots of questions to be asked in the week ahead. And of course, Bob Nicholson will testify in the following meeting after the one this week. So, Pierre, I think we'll wait and see what happens on Tuesday, but needless to say, an important week as this story continues to develop.
Yeah, still lots to play out in what it really has been the biggest story in hockey for months. And at the end of it all, Brian, it's going to be so fascinating, I think, to see what Hockey Canada will look like as far as its process and structure. And, this is a reckoning, and to make sure that how do these things get handled in the future? What's the structure look like? Who's making those decisions? Man, there's a lot to come here. For sure.
Yeah, and we will definitely be following that story on Tuesday. Our full-size episode of Got Your Back NHL, LeBrun and Rishaug, will drop on Wednesday morning, and we'll certainly be following up on that story. Pierre, thanks for hopping in, buddy. I know you got a busy day of making phone calls, so we'll let you rock and roll, pal. Talk to you soon.
Right on, right on.
All right, buddy. We'll let you go. In the meantime, I will say thank you once again to our sponsors, Cross Country Canada, Supplies and Rentals, for coming on board as our title sponsor this year. And, of course, Pro Hockey Life, who we're so proud to be affiliated with here on Got Your Back NHL Edition. We'll talk to you in a couple of days, folks. Thanks for your downloads and your subscriptions. Should be a lot of fun. Talk to you soon.